It's always great when both co-stars are suffering. Hey, thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Ryder.
And me, Caitlin.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we are going to Medieval London. Published July 1st, 2023. Set in Stone is the 15th installment of the Twisted Tale series. Which I'll pause just for a moment. When You Wish Upon a Star, it counts as the 14th, because even though it came out in the US after this published date, it came out in the UK before this for maximum confusion.
Yeah, I was just looking at the release dates, and it is very confusing because the wiki has Set in Stone set as before this one.
Yeah.
Because it was released in the UK earlier than When You Wish Upon a Star.
But if you look at the UK release dates, When You Wish Upon a Star came out first.
We're starting to get into that UK, Australia territory with these books, man.
Oh my gosh, yes we are.
Getting confusing.
But, so yeah, this is the first Twisted Tales published only in the UK and Australia, and the first appearance of Mari Mancusi.
I was thinking Mancusi, but I might be wrong. I didn't read the audiobook this time, y'all, so I am guessing on these name pronunciations as much as Sam.
You have a lovely name. Let's go on a hunt. Yeah, Mancusi.
Mancusi, okay.
It's Italian. We'll get to her in a second. Don't you worry.
Okay.
So yeah, it's her introduction. So how does this book hold up to its U.S. counterparts? Which, by the way, I learned that we use double quotations for quotes, but they only use single quotations for quotes. So I had to get used to that.
I didn't literally catch that at all.
That got me.
Yeah, my brain just passed over that.
It's like if you go to Europe and look at pricing, they'll use a comma where we would use a period and a period where we would use a comma. So it just gets a little flipped around. It's all good. Apparently it's very popular in the UK, although double quotations are becoming more and more popular, according to some prestigious somebody who said it. University of Sussex. So yeah, that took a little culture shock. You know, getting used to it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But background for this?
Here's my background. Pause this podcast right now. If you want the book to be ruined for you, go sit down right now and watch that film. Because if you haven't watched it like me since I was a tiny child, it might not be that big of a deal. But if you go and watch this film before reading this book, it will ruin the book for you.
Really?
Yes, in my opinion.
All right, so the Disney one came out in 1963. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep, the animated Sword in the Stone.
Yeah. Why does it ruin this?
If you go and you watch this film, scrawny little baby Arthur, that little tiny scrawny kid with just the weirdest voice is supposed to be the same Arthur that's in this book with the strong hands? No, absolutely not. It is relying on the fact that you probably haven't watched this since you were a very, very young child, because Sword in the Stone is very good and it's a classic.
I don't know. I knew it was him the whole time.
No, they're two completely different characters. You cannot expect that this tiny little gangly child that's 12 or 13 in this book is the same Arthur that they described to me in here. Nope.
I don't know if I agree with that. I imagined him the whole time. We watched it a week or so ago before I started reading the book because my husband just loves that movie because of Merlin.
Yeah, Merlin on point. It was the exact same.
But yeah, I was never really fond of it as a child. I thought it was kind of boring. That's how I feel about a lot of the movies made around this time period. But as an adult, it's kind of a cozy watch.
Yeah.
It's chill. You watch it. It has muted colors and, you know, the story and stuff. So, you know, it's a cozy watch.
Yeah, it is. It's easy. It's definitely, you can tell it's more of a kid's film as an adult. And honestly, we had to watch it in 2 parts because we fell asleep watching it the first time.
Yeah, it's very chill. Which I've always had some plot questions about it, but, you know, whatever. It's fine. No clue why Arthur's adopted father would keep Merlin around, but it's fine, whatever. But talk about this author. So she's picked for this book, which is the first UK book, UK Australia exclusive. First of all, I don't know why the UK is getting all of the books, and then I feel bad for Australia, honestly. They're getting gypped out of most books. But so I expected it to be a UK author, right?
You would think, especially given the content, but no.
And it's an American author.
Yeah.
But looking at her back catalog, it kind of makes sense.
Well, she does have some in Camelot, right, in this time frame.
Oh, she has a lot. So she is mainly a YA mid-lit author. She wrote Camelot Code, which is about a modern-day girl gamer playing this Camelot game and somehow getting sucked back in time to meet the real author. So there's 2 or 3 books in that series. And then there's a dragon series, and then another series that mentions Camelot.
Yeah, I'm looking at her wiki. I only see 2 Camelot Code and then a standalone novel called A Connecticut Fashionista in King Arthur's Court. What?
Oh, that's another one then, because she also has Cocktails in Camelot. Came out with that in 2016.
Oh, that wasn't on her wiki.
Chill romance books, a lot of dragon books, a lot of Camelot books. It looks like in the late '80s, early 2010s, she had a couple of dark vampire-looking books, which that's about right for the time.
Yeah. So I will say, more than any other author, this author feels like a true YA novel. And I appreciate her wiki page says middle grade, young adult, and new adult. And that feels like the perfect description because this book was the most YA true. A middle schooler can read this and understand it beautifully. Of all of the books.
Yeah, you realize what you just said right there with a middle schooler can read this just fine makes it mid-lit, not YA.
That's what mid-lit means then. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's a middle school book.
Okay.
If you could give this to a 6th grader, which you could.
Yes.
Then we'll get into it because age level mid-lit full stop.
100%.
It's not twisted. It doesn't have anything, but YA is, you don't have to be 18-year-old YA. But like I said, if you could give this to a 6th grader and it just fine, like a 10-year-old, which you could, I could argue you could give this to a 4th or 5th grader even. So it's mid-lit, which is pretty interesting. But just to wrap her up really quick, yeah, she's an Emmy-winning TV news producer. And the way she got involved with Disney is she did a bunch of the YA Frozen books.
Oh.
Which I am also hesitant to call YA because their tags for that one, the description, YA Frozen, whatever, and then in the tags mid-lit. So that makes me think that's about where her comfort level is because, yeah, age level mid-lit for sure.
Yeah.
Content warning, animal cruelty and death, kidnapping, and blood maybe. I wrote blood afterwards because Arthur gets in a fight, but remembering what was said, I remember her saying he was cut and he had bruises, but I don't even remember her saying he was bleeding.
Yeah, maybe when he fought Kay or something, possibly.
Yeah, I wrote it after the fact, so that might not even be in there.
Yeah, there's nothing. Not nothing. I mean, the betrayal and all that kind of stuff, but as far as, like strict content warnings, not a whole lot.
Yeah, what was really, really funny is I feel like they went to her and they're like, hey, Mari, we're going to do a Sword of the Stone book, and we don't think it's going to be that popular in the US, so we're going to just make it a UK exclusive. And Mari was like, oh, so Liz won't read this? And they're like, yeah, Liz probably won't read this. And she's like, cool. Chucks everything that's been the series before this.
Yes, 100%.
So it's just, yeah, super mid-lit. Which the other one that we said was mid-lit was the Frozen book, which I wish Mari had written that one so bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
That book had less content warnings than the movie did, which says something. But Jen wrote a bad book. She didn't even write a book. She wrote a plagiarism on the movie and then changed a couple words.
Yes.
This one, I'll just go ahead and say it. This one was a story. It was a legitimate story and a book, and I'm very proud of her. So just because it's mid-lit, I'm not going to doubt on it because a good story is good story, no matter what age level is appropriate.
Fair, yeah, there is story. Although, whoa, man, some of the things she said and some of the references she pulled, if I didn't have to read this, I would put it down at page 30, as we'll discuss.
Oh my gosh, she is a very fourth wall breaky person, and I think that's, well, granted, the movie's kind of fourth wall breaky, so.
Yeah, the movie is fourth wall breaking, so it felt appropriate.
But to judge a book by its cover, first of all, US designs all day.
Yeah.
UK design is the protagonist, and then something above them. For this one, it's tree branches making the face of the antagonist. And that's fine.
Oh, I guess, yeah, you're right, it is, kind of.
Yeah, you can see Madam Mim face kind of like laughing above him. And it's fine. I mean, it's purple. Purple's always a great color, but nah, I like the US covers. I'm so glad they continue to design US covers.
Yeah.
Even though they don't release them.
is in keeping with the previous themes of the previous books.
Thank heavens for Australia. Can we start a book exchange? I'll send you any of the other books if you'll just send me, because the next one is Suddenly Super, and it's Violet and her little orb thing and her family around her, and then the city, and then Syndrome face in the fire behind her.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I like what we have. I like what we started.
Yes, consistency at the very least.
It feels so much better, but we also differ on what we think about the question.
Yeah, we do. I think the question was fine.
I just think it could have been better because it didn't feel like it prepared me for what the book was actually about.
Sam, when do they ever? When what actually prepared you for what the plot twist is?
I think Mulan did.
Yeah. So Sleeping Beauty was, what if the Sleeping Beauty never woke up?
Oh, that's actually a pretty good one.
What if Ariel never defeated Ursula? What if the evil queen poisoned the prince?
Both of those are pretty good.
They hint at it a little, right? Or it's like, what if Meg had to become a Greek god? That's exactly what happens, right? So, I don't know. What if Arthur wasn't supposed to be king? And this was my argument, was it is accurate once you get the premise. Because in the original movie, he was chosen, destined to be king, and he pulled the legitimate sword from the stone. He was supposed to be the ruler, right? In this one, it was a trick, so he didn't get to fulfill that sword's destiny. So in those terms, he wasn't supposed to be king, but he still became the king in the end.
Yeah, it just feels really bland of a question. It just feels really safe to me. And I would be like, I don't know, I'd mention something of what if Merlin couldn't get back to help Arthur? That would be my thoughts of what a really good question would be. Because then I would go in, you have the prologue. So he's like, oh no, I can't get back. Like, oh no, what's going to happen? But it just felt like a really safe question.
Is in keeping with the tone of the book overall.
But yeah, the book starts, as all books do, you kind of have to begin. But where the schism happens is when Arthur tells Merlin, hey, I'm going to London, I'm going to be a squire to Kay, that whole fight, and then Merlin pops himself to Bermuda. He's stuck.
Yep.
In Bermuda in general. He keeps popping around to different time periods, but he can't get back to London.
Yes, which I love. The prologue isn't actually from Merlin's point of view, it's from the waiter's point of view, and I loved that.
It's from this poor haggard employee that's having to deal with this guy who seems to have delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, I love the internal monologue of this waiter and him trying so hard. He's trying so hard. It's like, oh, this poor grandpa, he's probably sun poisoned. He needs help. Let me get him help. But why does this always happen to me? I was just rolling. I thought that was a very strong opening to the book.
I thought it was pretty funny. It was like this poor employee who's like, why on my shift?
Yeah, why does this happen to me?
Oh my goodness.
And then his comments about like, I don't know, man, sounds like your nephew or it sounds like your son or whatever. And poor Merlin's just losing it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It kind of jumps a little bit, not really, jumps from the fight. The prologue's probably like right about the same time, but Arthur's been crowned. And I thought it was interesting. This is the first book that doesn't assume you just watched the movie. I feel like it gives a really good, it gives a recap period.
Yeah, it isn't dumping the narration on you, though. I did like that.
No, it's a good recap, but I thought it was interesting there was a recap because I think of, Alice in the Wonderland, or there's a couple where it happens afterwards.
Yeah.
The Hercules one, or any of those books, even some of the other books where it twisted but later, like Aladdin, it just jumps right into wherever the story is. But she's like, no, let me just give a quick little recap.
Well, I guess aside from Snow White, this is maybe the second oldest film.
We had Pinocchio too. That was the 40s.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which we learned that was in the 40s.
Appropriate to do a recap. And it's also just not a super, it's not that it's an unpopular film, but they're much older films, so it's safer to say that people haven't read them in a while.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't think we've had that much of a... We talked about the last book having Kingdom Hearts storytelling, where it's like, oh, we have our plot over here, but every once in a while we'll see a cutscene from the movie. That was kind of how the last book book handled it. But yeah, most of the time they're just like, yep, you've seen the movie a million times. We're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
So he's dealing with the people and having to make decisions. They pull a Solomon with a chicken.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great.
And the more important thing is the Saxons have come, and the Saxons and the Brits are bitter, bitter rivals back through the centuries.
Yeah, pretty classically don't get along.
Yeah, like the Athenians and the Spartans, basically. And, well, actually, that's a very good comparison. Good job, Sel. But Arthur, instead of going to battle, instead of, doing what his knights would normally do, or what this mysterious wizard Morgan
Le Fay
would do. Arthur was a little dim on that one. Like, this mysterious wizard appears, they're purple, and she's like, hey, you should totally destroy them, kill the world, haha, burn it all down. He's like, cool.
Maybe not.
So I'm not gonna do that since they're on our way.
Yeah.
Arthur decides, no, let's go a peaceful route. We're gonna invite them here for a feast, and we're just gonna talk it out. We're gonna be adults. We're gonna talk it out. It'll be fine.
We'll get trust in the inherent goodness of people. Oh, what a child.
And everyone's just like, this is a horrible idea. And he's like, let's just give it a try. We're either going to fight or we're going to fight. Okay, it's fine. So here's page 30. Caitlin started the book before me, and she's like, when I got to page 30, I almost put the book down. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm reading along. I get to the infamous page 30, and I'm reading as I go. And I'm like, okay, I'm almost to the end of this page. Is it page 30? Maybe she was just being like, oh, about page 30. Second to last paragraph. Short paragraphs, by the way, but second to last paragraph at the very bottom. It not in so many words, which I think makes it even better. Mim explains that she took the real Excalibur and she couldn't take the enchantment off the sword and stone or anvil, so she just moved it through time and space to Disneyland?
World in Florida. I almost threw my book across the room.
That is so funny.
I don't know how often you read quotes. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I actually have a physical copy of the book. She snuck out late at night and used her magic to relocate the real Sword in the Stone to some kind of fancy theme park in the future of a land yet to be called Florida. Oh, the eye rolling and the huffing I did. I said, oh, so this is the book we're reading. Okay, which, as Sam said earlier, it is a fourth wall breaking movie. It always has been.
It's so funny.
It is really funny, but man, if that did not throw me for a freaking loop. And then she continued with that attitude the rest of the book. And there were moments where I was like, I can't handle this. Deadpool's funny, but man, sometimes breaking the fourth wall, you just go a little too far.
I had to put it down to process it.
I told you.
I just think it's so freaking funny that this Disney book, written by a Disney fan to Disney executives.
Yep.
And they're just, how can we make the cheapest little side thing that you can do at Disney World into canon?
Yeah, I love it.
They're like, let's make this specifically canonical. If you don't know, you can go to Disney World. There's the Sword in the Stone. A bunch of people will try to lift it, but if you lift it, it doesn't come all the way out. But it rises up, plays a little bit of music, and you get some sort of prize for it happening.
Yeah.
You can walk in the parade, or I think that is the thing. But X amount of times, it's completely random, but that's what this is. That's what is being referred to here. That's at Disneyland.
Yes, that was wild to me. There was definitely a part of me, and I guess it is consistent to the movie. I was just so taken aback by it in the book. They continue to reference and talk like modern century people. Mim and Merlin will throw out these phrases that are obviously from our time and that are obviously newer phrases. And they're just like, well, it's something that comes later, like the whole diplomacy at the end, or democracy. That's what it was. And I'm just like, how are we supposed to believe that these people talk like us? But then I'm like, oh, well, that is consistent with the film, I guess.
Yeah, which, okay, guys, on that one, when Arthur was like, democracy hasn't been invented yet. Y'all, it was different. It wasn't everybody gets a vote, man, woman, and child. We still don't let children vote, but it's been around. Okay, calm down. But yes, so the twist that I really, really liked, and that could have also been the question, if we wanted to focus books just on women, which they have a tendency to do, what if Mim raised Guinevere? Would also have been a really good question that I would immediately, because what if Arthur wasn't supposed to come? I don't care.
Yeah.
I think you're oversaturated in the market, my dude. I don't really care. But as soon as the man was like, oh, my little ward, my blonde little dancing Guinevere, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Okay. Yes, I am for it. I am down. So when Mim get Arthur to listen to her, she devises a new plan where little Guinevere's gonna enter the castle and gain Arthur's confidence.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know the original story, Guinevere ends up betraying him.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the fourth wall break that actually broke my heart a little bit. They go to Bermuda, which, by the way, I never knew where the story was going. I kind of enjoyed that about it, where the obvious thing would happen, but halfway through the book, they go to Bermuda. And it was like, oh, okay. But while they're there, somebody mentions, oh yeah, the King Arthur mix. You know, Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot. And immediately I was like, no, they're so freaking cute. Don't tell me Lancelot's coming later.
Yeah.
That made me so sad.
I actually thought they were going to introduce the Lancelot character at some point.
I did too, and they didn't. And I'm just like, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. You know, it's fine.
Well, I actually thought that they played her character pretty in keeping with what the archetype of the Guinevere character is set up. Later, she talks about, like, I'm going to minimize myself till I'm not going to admit to my mistakes. I'm never going to tell him, but I'm going to be the perfect person. And I feel like they actually stuck pretty well to the Guinevere archetype that we know from all the stories, because she is by no means the perfect woman, and she does a lot of horrible stuff, right? And in the name of doing things well or doing things for the good, right? So I don't know. I actually thought that was pretty decent internal story consistency.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked Mim and Guinevere together.
How Arthur acts around Guinevere and kind of how Guinevere acts around Arthur is pretty. But I ship it. It's actually very cute. Don't mention Lancelot. He doesn't need to exist. I do like how casually Arthur's like, oh, and I bought us a new dining table. And then he goes to the future and they're like, oh yeah, Knights of the Round Table. And he's like, wait, that's gonna be famous?
That's important.
That was pretty funny, because that feels about right.
Yeah, that was good.
But yeah, Guinevere's gonna go into the castle and gain his confidence, but Gwen doesn't know she's doing, well, she knows she's doing that, but she thinks she's doing that because Merlin is evil. He's a terrible person. He murders people in cold blood for funsies. And so he's put this puppet king on the throne, and oh no, they're going to destroy England. And she's like, okay, I've got to do this to save England.
She has really great motives, right? Desire to do it. Now, I do think it's a little hilarious that Mim is just like, why is she taking this so seriously? It's like, you literally told her that Merlin is an evil wizard who acts purely for evil intentions and then is now on the throne of England. You have an English citizen. I don't know. Mim's internal consistency was all over the place. She was wild.
Yes. But we have the accidental meeting trope. Gwen meets Arthur. He says his name is Ward. She's like, oh no, he seems like a good guy. And then almost immediately he gets caught by a search party, which they're fast. Holy crap.
Yeah, immediately.
So he gets found out and like, oh, he's the king. And so she's mad at him for lying, which is hilarious because later on, at least she calls herself out for it. She's lying a lot to him. That's her whole mission, is to lie to him.
Yeah.
So I'm glad somebody called her out on that, even if it was herself. But she goes to the castle. She is a dishwasher. She's very whimsical. She can be childish.
Yeah, this is why I was really frustrated. And now maybe this makes me show my age, right? Because an actual middle schooler would be like, oh, a nice innocent love story among people my age. And all I'm feeling is curmudgeonly and like 12, 13, and 14-year-olds shouldn't see each other and falling in love. It's not okay.
I mean, don't you remember what it was like to be 12, 13?
Oh, only a little.
I had my first kiss at 14, but a lot of people had their first kiss by 7th grade or in 7th grade.
Yes, I know. It's just weird to me for some reason. And then again, too, gangly Arthur. What I couldn't get around is there was one time where they were like holding hands or whatever, and she describes him as having like strong hands with calluses developing. And I'm like, no.
Well, already developed because of manual labor, yeah.
Or something like that. Okay, like maybe the calluses. No, he doesn't have big, strong hands. He's a 14-year-old gangly kid.
Well, she says they're strong hands because she likes him. Come on.
Oh, it's just, well, I was not a fan.
All they do is kiss. They kiss like 3 times in the book, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot.
No, I think it's about that time period.
Yeah, I guess. budding romance.
They're like 12, 13, 14, literally teenagers.
Yeah, she described him as 14 in the first few pages.
Yeah, so here's the question. On average, the average age for someone's first kiss is typically around 15, which of course is an average.
Like I said, I'm showing my curmudgeon. I'm showing my age.
Most people experience their first kiss during their teenage years, often between the ages of 12 and 15. Yeah, so it was appropriate for... The only weird one was their first kiss was she uses a lot of tropes, which is fine. A lot of authors use a lot of tropes.
Yeah.
But she uses the trope of, oh no, we're walking this way, and...
Yeah, we had to do a distraction.
And someone's walking that way, and oh no, we're gonna be caught, and so the only way to not be caught is if we make out.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah, it did feel a little weird.
Only because, here's the thing, we're at the search party, right? He's gone for 0.2 seconds, and they have a search party, and they found him, right? What bothers me about the scene where they make out is it's 2 nights, they're walking up the stairs, they're going to see the king, and one of them's like, we need to tell the king this right away, and the other one's like, yeah, it's very important that we tell the king this, and then they make out, and they keep going, and then they sneak out of the castle, and they go to Merlin's tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was so important that they needed to tell the king?
And you never find out.
And you never find out!
They never do, and they never say anything.
And granted, you're about to find out that somebody else takes over being the king, and so it's not completely forgotten. But I'm like, this boy walks outside to a well, and y'all search party immediately. And Arthur and Guinevere don't think about that either, because they're like, oh, we have to tell the king something, it's very important. And Arthur and Guinevere are like, hee hee hee, we just had our first kiss, and we totally ignored them, ha ha, let's get into this cart and run away.
Yeah.
No thoughts to the important information that they were about to tell Arthur. None. I know he's 14, but if you're gonna sell me on an wise Solomon-esque character and then have that happen, is he a good king or not?
I guess he's learning.
Him and Elsa need to pick sides. All right, whatever. Before we get on the cart, though, the Saxons come, they have a feast. Woo! Oh, by the way, Archimedes is there this whole time. He chimes in.
Yeah, love Archimedes.
He's a big character at the beginning of the book, but about like a third of the way in, he really drops off.
Yeah, he gets injured and then can't do anything anymore.
But the feast is going super well. And then the way the book is set up, which I know our viewers love that I report on this every single book, but it's page numbers and POV.
Yeah, chapters and POV.
Yeah, so you get the number, and then it's like Arthur, Guinevere, Mim. And then I turn the page for this one, and Sir Ector gets a POV.
Yeah, pops up.
Oof, that can't be good. And it's not.
Nope.
In the middle of this feast, his stepbrother, or adopted brother, or however that works.
Foster brother is what he calls him. Yeah.
Foster brother, yeah. Which, they don't have a foster system. How do they know that word?
Again, we don't know.
Anyway, comes up, and he's like, you're not supposed to be the real ruler. Swords are stupid. Fight me. I came to fight. You should fight me. I understand at the end why no one else is like, I want to fight you, but for Kay to just be like, hey, fist fight me specifically. I came here for a tournament. Screw the other 4 people competing.
Yes. How on earth, why, Sir Ector, do you feel like you were robbed? Didn't occur to you at all that if you just treat this little kid with any amount of respect and dignity, that he would value your opinion because he considered you to be a father? Come on.
Oh no, he is brawn, no brain. Just none.
Yeah.
He is a little bit more than his kid, but he did not pass it, you know?
No.
But yeah, he thinks it's totally fine to just walk up to the king and be like, hey, we should fist fight, and that'll prove you're supposed to be king. Okay.
Yeah.
So that happens, and they're gonna fight the next day, and everybody shows up, and Mim's super excited.
Yeah, she loves all the chaos.
She loves the chaos, which, can we talk about how accurate the relationship is between Mim and Guinevere? Girl's got some real solid confirmation bias going on this whole book.
Yeah.
Because she was raised by Mim, and so she sees the world almost through Mim's eyes in a way, and they did a really good job of, and I put it in my notes, when you read the Rapunzel book, Mother Gothel's a narcissist.
Totally.
But when you read this book, Mim is just insanely emotionally immature.
Yeah.
Which is a spectrum. You can be a little emotionally immature, or you can be a lot of emotionally immature. And at the far end of that little scale is narcissism. So that is, we're worst case scenario here a little bit. And so Mim acts very childish.
Yes.
She is very immediate gratification. If she likes something, she doesn't understand how other people can't like it.
Like the slug soup. Oh my gosh.
The slug soup, she's convinced, oh, everyone loves it. You love it. The whole kingdom needs it. I like it, so everyone likes it. I think the author just does a really good job of showing how they also, she doesn't really take responsibility for her actions.
No.
She blames everything on Merlin. And then later she blames Arthur. No emotional regulation whatsoever. Like, she's sitting next to her daughter who likes Arthur and is worried for him. And she's like, oh my gosh, it'll be so funny when he gets murdered. Like, can't even dial it back.
No.
Yeah, cannot handle criticism, has no empathy.
Yeah. If you've never seen Dawn of the Mom on YouTube, she does these skits, right? Where she plays all the characters.
Oh, yeah.
And every interaction with Mim, to me, was just the mother-in-law, Brenda.
Oh my gosh, Brenda.
The perfect representation of Mim in my head was Brenda. The same high-pitched, squeaky voice. Why am I always being attacked? No one appreciates me. And I'm like, it's the same person in my mind.
Yeah, so many things. She has this need for attention and positive validation. And what if you put, like, a small child in an adult's body?
Yeah, with magical powers.
Yeah, and so I think you could really study how Mother Gothel handles her adopted child versus how Mim handles her adopted child. Both of them are very not great.
Yes.
When you have a parent that is that emotionally immature, the intention isn't there, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cause or can cause an abusive situation.
Exactly.
I think she just does it really, really well. The way Gothel manipulates, I don't know, narcissists play 3D chess. They're there for the whole thing, where I feel like a lot of emotionally mature, they're playing checkers, move to move, what is working. And you see her do that with Gwen. She'll say one thing in this moment and then another thing in this moment, and just whatever she needs to say to get through the thing, but she's not really thinking about, oh, next time, what would this be?
Yeah, the long-term consequences.
Yeah, and thinks very highly of herself. If anything happens where she should have introspection and be like, oh, maybe that wasn't a good thing, or maybe I need to learn from this, she just runs away from it immediately, blames other people. The world's just being mean to her for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, childish. Like you said, like she never got past that child development stage.
Yeah, but she thinks really highly of herself because it's important for her to keep a good attitude, but she doesn't really have this grandiose, I'm the best wizard that's ever wizard, ever. She thinks she's the best, but I don't know. There's like a difference there. I would need to sit down and read both of them to think of good examples, but...
Yeah, it's a different dichotomy for sure.
Yeah, and there you go, Disney. 2 books that did really well. But yeah, there's just something in Mim where you're just a little worried for poor little Gwen there.
Yeah, oh no.
Even if accidentally or sometimes on purpose, these emotionally immature can program buttons into you, and they press the button and then they get a certain reaction. That happens with Gwen here, and she's dealing with confirmation bias. She's dealing with cognitive dissonance a lot of the book.
Oh, a ton.
Where she's like, Mim said this happened, and Merlin's this terrible person, but
the way Arthur talks about him,
Mim's kind of acting like the terrible one. Merlin seems pretty cool. And so she's dealing with it where she's like, hey, this doesn't match my mindset. This doesn't match my worldview. So I'm just going to ignore that for now.
Yep, and that's very Mim.
Just going to push it under and not think about it. Because she gets overwhelming evidence almost that Merlin's a good person. And she's still like, I need proof.
Yeah.
Which is very accurate, I think, as well. And then the anger she feels at the end of it with Mim.
Yeah, very understandable.
Very understandable. So
I thought the Guinevere-Mim relationship was honestly very well done and very well thought out, because you could tell where her whole world shifting on its axis and her starting to question things. But you can see the point where she's like, I can't let myself think that this is true. There's even an internal dialogue at one point. She was like, wouldn't it be wild, actually? Let me put myself in Arthur's shoes. If I found out that my mentor, who I loved and cared for me, was horrible and evil, I'd have a hard time wrapping my head around it too. And you're like, oh no, that's exactly what's happening, ma'am. Whoops.
But that is such an important step, because up until then, it wouldn't have even crossed her mind as a possibility.
Yep.
And so her having that moment of empathy with Arthur to be like, oh my gosh, how wild would it be if? It's like such an important stepping stone to get to, wait a minute, maybe it could be.
Yeah.
Oh, as a therapist, how did you feel about that?
No, I mean, I did. I thought it was a good, like you said, you can see just because the intentionality behind Mim's actions isn't there doesn't mean it's not damaging. And so you can still see how there's going to be a lot of mistrust. I definitely found myself thinking, oh, when she goes to live with her real parents,
Yeah.
how are you going to heal that wound, you know? And that whole, well, you are my mom, but you didn't raise me and you thought I was dead your whole life. So that's obviously not your fault. Because I can't remember if they said, but Mim did something to genuinely lead them to believe that she was dead instead of continuing to look for her.
Yeah, so Guinevere was kidnapped out of her cradle as a baby.
Yeah.
Because Mim thought she would be very powerful wizard, which is ironic because Mim's lies about Merlin makes her hate magic, and so she refuses to use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is a big deal, getting back to the Kay part, when during the fight with Kay, she transforms into a mouse to start biting him.
Yes, so that Arthur can win.
So that's a really big deal. I thought Guinevere was going to have to hide that longer, but immediately Mim grabs her and she's like, oh, hello, pesky little mouse. Wait a second.
Yeah, I thought that was fake at first, but then I realized, oh, she could tell there's something off with the mouse, but she didn't realize that it was Guinevere.
Yeah, I thought she was going to be like, oh my gosh, Gwen, how dare you? But no, she was just sat there like, oh my goodness, mouse, you were very helpful for this. And then looked at it, and her thing is she has long lashes and brown eyes.
Yeah.
And so Mim's looking down at her like, oh my gosh, mouse, wait a second, you look familiar. And here's the thing with emotionally immature parents. It could have gone either way.
Yeah, it really could have.
She could have gotten really angry that her plan was foiled, and then she could have been just vitriol at Gwen, or she does what she does, and she's like, oh my gosh, Gwen is using magic. I don't care what the purpose is, but she's using magic, and that's what I wanted this whole time. And she just gets overly happy.
Yeah.
I think that's the most damaging thing about living with someone who's emotionally immature is you just don't know what's going to happen. There's no security. There's no trust of being able to regulate big emotions as an adult. It could be anything at any point for any reason. So even if you have a situation repeat,
you can't predict it. Yeah.
It could be completely wildly different outcomes and you have no idea which one it's going to be.
Yeah, because it did father tantrums. That's what it is. And you can't regulate your emotions. You don't know what you're going to do from situation to situation.
It's rough.
Yeah. It's one of those things. That's why isolation is so important. They lived out in the forests of Sauvage or however you pronounce it. And she kept her isolated, because she didn't want anyone seeing her and recognizing her for who she was, because obviously she looks a lot like her mom. But B, you can't expose her to the outside world, because once she starts telling people, once she starts talking to people about her experience and what it's like at home, you start realizing, oh, wait, this isn't right. Gwen had legit pity for Arthur because she was like, well, both of our parents died, but at least I was raised with a loving figure who cared about me. Arthur had this crappy foster dad who essentially treated him like a servant. So she has empathy because she does genuinely think, because she didn't have any experiences to compare it to.
Yeah.
And that's why isolation is so important in those instances.
But the really dangerous thing about stuff like this in the childhood is without a point of reference, even if you're surrounded by people, you go to public school, you have friends, you're in extracurriculars, whatever, you're around people outside, you don't realize that they're not going through the exact same things you are behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Kids absolutely believe whatever their experience is in childhood is the normal. And even if you do have friends, it's like, oh, you go over and have sleepovers and this, that, and the other thing, then you're just like, oh, they're different.
They're the weird ones.
They're the weird ones. And even if you have like a bunch of those experiences, you're just like, okay, some people are like that, but something in your brain still tells you most people are like this. So she would never think to mention that to another person unless she said something really random like, oh yeah, we had to have slug stew again. And then the mandated reporter around her is like, excuse me? Wait, what?
The mandated reporter.
So it's so dangerous. So she was isolated, which helped a lot. But you see it when, she's not isolated. She's around Arthur. She's talking to him all the time. She's even talking about her family, like how much her mom loves her and this, that, and the other thing. It paints this really beautiful picture to Arthur.
Yep.
To when he realizes that it's Mim, he's like, holy crap, you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so dangerous.
And that is what's so scary about it.
Oof.
Anyway, that's a little heavy.
For a mid-lit book, it's one of those things, as an adult, it would be harder to read the book than a child, because they would take it for granted a little bit, like, okay, yeah, that happened. But as an adult, you're like, oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, I see the long-term consequences of this.
But yeah, so Arthur ends up defeating Kay with the help of Guinevere. He gets thrown in jail for treason.
Which appropriate.
But here's the thing, spoiler not spoiler, because we warned you. Nim takes over as Arthur when he leaves the castle, and here's where Liz's twisted tales and Mari's twisted tales are very different. Mari just releases Kay. Mari's Mim releases Kay.
Yeah.
You're gone.
Get out.
And he seems a little bit crazy, but he was not tortured. He just seems like, oh my gosh, you're not Arthur. That's his big thing. You're not Arthur. You're not real. And everyone's like, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Liz's twisted tales?
Yeah, it would have gotten dark.
That man would have been tortured. They would have come back to Kay's execution being scheduled. I'm not going to say she would have done it.
Yeah.
But maybe she would have. But at least minimum, he was going to be executed too. He was going to be on that pyre too.
Yeah.
To add to that. But yeah, no, she just lets him go. And I was like, someone was in a good mood one day.
Yeah, because again, you gotta cause chaos.
Yeah.
I guess letting a traitor go would cause chaos.
Ah, yes. Short reference with Gwen. Am I the villain? I don't think I'm the villain.
Yeah, I'm the villain.
That's her character arc this whole book. But yeah, so things are actually going really well. The Saxons have agreed to become allies. You know, he took out Kay. People are like, okay, yeah, you are the ruler. And so things are going really well, except for the fact that, gosh goodness, he cannot find Merlin to save his life. And he's just really upset about that.
Yeah.
So Gwen offers to go with him to Merlin's castle so they can look through his books to try to find him.
Yeah, find some reference on why he's stuck and he can't come back.
Yeah, like, where is he? He said he went to Bermuda. Why isn't he back? Which, by the way, hopping back on to Mim being a terrible parent. Mim does a thing. She's like, yay, Arthur almost died. That was so much fun. And Guinevere's like, hey, these are real people, real lives. That's the end of the road.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty terrible. And Mim's response, I wrote it down verbatim. Why are you being so mean to me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the accuracy. The absolute accuracy.
Yeah. Well, and here we get too a little bit that, so Mim is like, oh, you're in love, obviously, so I can't trust you to finish it. So she's going to go turn Arthur into a slug, which is ew. Guinevere decides to come clean a little bit, right? So she tells him, hey, that she was told that Merlin is this horrible wizard and blah, 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 and he puts you on the throne to control you so he could have control of England. And whoops, Arthur, he has the introspection to be like, have I been gypped? Like, that doesn't feel accurate. And he doesn't make any kind of snap decision. He said, I need to talk to Merlin. I need to get the information on this. How can we figure out how to get him back? And that's where the whole devising the plan to go back to Merlin's tower, that's where that comes about.
Yeah, because like I said, Mim was totally fine with her turning into a mouse, but the problem arose when she was like, hey, I don't like your plan. Your plan sucks. And she's like, you're being mean to me, so I'm going to ground you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't say the words that I wanted you to say in the moment. And so she gets grounded, and so Gwen turns into a bird. Bird comes to the window. Arthur has been poisoned by fake Gwen, and then Gwen's just so happily has the antidote. And he's like, how did you have the antidote? And she's like, well, you know, I like to dabble in herbs and stuff. I just keep a bunch of stuff on me.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. But yes, they shave his head, which felt excessive.
Oh.
But they shave his head, and this is where the hallway scene happened, where it's like, oh no, I should have my head shaved, but my face is so recognizable. Why? Why would your face be recognizable?
Yeah.
You look like a child, literally every other child. Two things are in your favor here, sir. First of all, different age groups have a hard time differentiating between other age groups. So if you're a child, you have an easier time remembering faces of other children, but like adults blur together. And that's the same thing when you're an adult. You know, you look at kids, they kind of all blur together, elderly all kind of blur together and whatever.
Yeah.
So you have that in your favor. And then you also have the fact that they're not expecting you to look like a servant.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have shaved head.
Most of the people in that castle wouldn't have seen you as a servant, so they wouldn't, like you said, wouldn't recognize you in that state.
They would not expecting to see the king in this random buzzhead. But yeah, they had the kissing trope. I've never liked it personally. It's fine. fine. It always feels like there's like a million of other things you could have done just as easily.
Yeah, they're too young. It's too weird. I don't like forcing them to be romantic thing.
Let them have a cute little first kiss. It's fine.
The kiss on the beach was so great. That could have been their one and only. Why do we need a weird kiss in the middle of the stairwell? Because I also don't like the implications, right? When they find Merlin with her in the woods, there's this, oh, we're older than you, so we know what you're going after. And then when they're in the stairwell, they're like, oh, servants, up to no good. I'm like, stop implying this. Stop implying that children are having sex. I don't like it.
I mean, I don't know if that's what they were implying, but they were definitely like, you guys have hormones.
Yeah.
Another jump back real quick as I'm looking at my notes. He gets turned into a slug and he sees himself in the mirror, and then the quote, he gives a horrible slug scream.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I imagined it in cartoon style and I heard it and I laughed so hard.
There's that one movie about where I'm pretty sure someone gets turned into a slug or someone wakes up and they're a slug and like they do that exact thing, and that's what I had playing in my head.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, my notes are caught up to where we were actually at, I swear. They travel through the forest on this merchant's whatever to get to Merlin's tower, and they run into wolves, and oh no, Arthur has to use his brain again to solve the thing. Huzzah. And then the rest is uneventful. And you put that it was filler. I don't know if it was filler.
It was filler to add more references because, again, it's like you said, you sit down and you watch the movie before this, you see how many little things they pulled from the book to include in the movie, like calling him a sparrow, right? That's obviously a reference to when they were as flying around as birds. And then this, the wolf thing chasing them around, the skinny wolf, that was in the movie. It was just a chapter of filler to prove that he's learning and he's growing, but another way to just drop a reference.
Yeah, but just remember, it could be worse. Jen has taught us where the bar is.
That is true. And that's why I was sure, like, as we were getting into this last half of the book, this is so, like I said, mid-lit. Everything works out smooth. It's not difficult. Where it really got clear to me was later. But this chapter, right? It's like, okay, I've got this thing. I need to know how to solve it. I need to solve it with my brain. Therefore, I'm going to be as big, as bad, as scary as I can. No complications, no conflict, worked like a charm. And now we're off. It's very simple. And again, that's not a problem. That is what mid-lit is probably supposed to be. It's easily digestible, but
it needs to be a little bit less complex because they just aren't mentally there for the super complexities. But also, you have to remember, if the world were normal, 14-year-olds couldn't save the world.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there is some grace there. Yeah, there is some grace there. They want to be the chosen ones. They want to be seen, you know.
Yeah.
But they make it to the tower. Guinevere can read, but Arthur can't. But she doesn't want to read. She doesn't want to do magic. She doesn't want to help him out. She's worried that Merlin's a terrible person and they're going to let him out of the cage that Mim has set up for him. And so Arthur manages to do some magic, gets the books to read themselves, this, that, and the other thing. Gwen agrees to help. She recites a spell, and guess what? They're in Bermuda.
They go to Bermuda.
Anyway, they meet up with Merlin. They have a little bit of a little kerfuffle in the gift shop.
Which is so funny.
She's like, I only have one coin, and hands it to her. It's a golden coin from their time period. And she like immediately looks it up and she's like, it's from the Middle Ages. And I'm like, well, that woman's rich now.
Rich now, yeah.
She doesn't have to work the gift shop. She can go lounge by the beach.
Yeah, the prompts from this of how do we imagine that these people from the Middle Ages would look and see what modern day, like the constant reference to the phones. I was rolling at that. And then the French fries, like a slab of meat between two slices of bread. Oh, it's a hamburger. Okay, it's a hamburger and fries. But calling them just golden sticks, I was just so taken aback by the description of modern day.
So they find him in the infirmary. Arthur turns into a mouse to scare away the front desk lady so they can look at her computer to try to look at Arthur's reputation to see if he is the right king.
Which I can't. Again, these references, these modern day references, I can't. You know what the spell to turn into a mouse is? Misculus musculus, Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I was just...
They're the only series that can do it. They might as well.
I know. But I did think it was funny. It's like, are they still scared of mice here? And Merlin's like, oddly, yes. I don't know why, but yeah, they are scared of mice. So that actually might work.
She straight up leaves the building.
Yeah, runs out of the building.
Girl, That's how you get fired.
Yeah.
They got HIPAA stuff on there, which here's the thing. It was connected to the internet, but it very easily could have been connected to an intranet where she could only do things that apply to whatever the business, they're in a clinic. So it only applied to patient charts and stuff. So not a great gamble.
Yeah, but in the modern day, even a business computer is going to have Google or some sort of search engine on it, so.
It doesn't have to. It'd be like going to a front disk computer, and there's plenty of them where they're only set up to do the thing. Oh well. It worked out, but a little part of me was like, we're just ignoring those pesky little details. Like, other people work in this clinic, or they could be people in the waiting room.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is a midlet. Yeah, he has a reputation. Oh my gosh, the stone, he's amazing. It's wonderful. The internet has never lied.
Yeah, that made me laugh.
So they're like, okay, obviously you were meant to be king. And Gwen is having a moment because Merlin's like, hey, no, your adopted mom is awful. Mim is terrible. Your parents are still alive.
Yeah.
She kidnapped you as a child and totally brainwashed you about the world. Anyway, excuse me, this internet search is very important.
And it's 100% accurate.
Which they totally skipped to her at the beach looking out, and they totally skipped Merlin coming up and being like, hey, I know you're having a mental breakdown right now, but I really need my spell book.
Yeah, there was some coming back together so he could figure it out, and they're just waiting around.
For him to figure it out, yeah. But yeah, they kind of have a heart-to-heart. They kiss on the beach, it's very cute. Still a little confused how the time travel works, because they get sent back to the past, but like 2 months after they left.
Yeah, just incorrect timing.
Whatever. Mim's on the throne.
Whoops.
Pretending to be Arthur. It took me a minute, because at first Echo was like, they threw me out, and Arthur's like, wait, I didn't do that. I was gonna do that, but I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so yeah, the knights did that. They were like, no, you're a traitor. You raised a traitor. Get out of here. And then he's like, oh, ever since Kay left, he's been like, that's not Arthur. It's not Arthur on the throne. I was like, oh, crap, it's Mim.
Yeah, now I know.
It's Mim. Which they never say where she's purple. Up to this point, her tell.
No, they do.
Where is he purple?
Yeah, on his ear.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's always purple somewhere.
Somewhere.
So they go to London, and Arthur's gonna challenge her, and Gwen's like, hey, make it a game, she'll accept then. I was like, fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Decides to challenge her in front of everyone so she can't back down, which is a choice. Granted, I don't think he could have gotten to her alone normal ways.
No. Yeah, it happened to be Petitioner's Day.
She's still seeing petitioners. That's what shocked me. She's doing all of this horrible stuff that you get a rundown about, but no, she's still listening to petitioners. I don't know.
It's causing chaos.
I would think she would think it was boring, though.
No. You said canonically multiple times, like, she doesn't want to rule England. She explained that. She's like, I've wanted a puppet that I could go on because that's more fun. That's an easier way to do it, right? But, meddling in the lives of the small people, that's the best way to create the chaos.
So that's going on. I thought the plot twist was going to be somehow they get the real one back.
Yes.
And he pulls the sword out of the stone of that one, proving that he was the rightful ruler, period. That never happens. Don't worry. The Excalibur in Disney World, totally real. We promise.
Yeah.
That will stay in my mind longer than most of the plot of this book.
Yes, it will. And this is where I felt like the true YA-ness, the true midlet of this shone through, because he comes up and he demands a challenge, and she's like, yeah, okay, that sounds fun. Let's go do it right now. And you're like, oh, in a Liz book, in a more complicated book, there would be accusations, and can you not tell us apart? And there'd be more trying to convince the people that it's wrong, right? Like, there would be so much more complexity. But he comes in, it's like, imposter, I challenge you to pull the sword from the stone. And she's like, bet. Okay, let's go do it right now. And I'm like, okay, this is not complex, very simple, move it right along.
Which I feel like he should have gotten on game when she agreed so quickly.
Yeah, and he finally was like, wait, this isn't going how it should. It should have been more complicated than this.
Because, oh, wouldn't you know it? The sword she enchanted doesn't get pulled out of the stone for Arthur, but oh my gosh, she can do it. And it's the same way that it happened the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's like, okay, cool, you're a traitor. I'm going to throw you in the dungeon, and I'm going to execute you with the Saxon king that I have locked up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, so you'll murder a dude for saying it? Like, you just let Kay go?
Yeah.
The dude tried to murder you. Okay, whatever. And Gwen can't do anything because her magic got taken away from her by Mim because she's grounded for helping Arthur. This is where Merlin shows up and he's like, don't worry, Gwen. We need to find a way to figure out what's really going on before we can be helpful.
You gotta figure out what her one true weakness is. I saw that coming from a mile away that Gwen is the weakness. Okay, not hard to predict. I did love Merlin's confidence throughout everything. And listen, we're not just gonna bam him and save him because he won't learn anything that way.
Well, the problem is, and I do appreciate
classic mentor.
It is, but he also points out he'll just be back in the jail cell in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Because unless we all just run away, yeah. So I appreciate Merlin's wisdom.
So this would solve nothing, but yeah, I guess that's a big one of the differences between Mim and Mother Gothel is Mim legitimately cares about Gwen.
Yes, she does.
She cares about her well-being. She wishes Gwen would just do what she says, but Gwen's big thing is like, I'm also a traitor, so I'm gonna die with Arthur on this pyre. And she freaks out and like scoops her up and like it's the whole thing. She becomes a dragon. Gothel, when Rapunzel stopped being useful, dropped her like a hot potato.
Yeah.
We thought she didn't fight enough in that she didn't fight enough for the magic. But she was like, nah, I'm done. You're too much effort.
Yeah.
You're not rewarding for me. Drops her. Does not care in the slightest.
In the slightest.
So that is definitely a difference you see here. Yeah, she turns into a freaking dragon. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, and it's the real Arthur. Which his head is shaved. No one brings that up.
Yeah.
Like, he's bald. Watch the movie. He has this long, blonde hair that you would describe as like a floppy. It's almost exactly the Shaggy haircut, but maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
And then he's just shaved, bald.
Well, no, I imagine like a crop cut, but yeah.
Still, no one's like, so why is your head shaved?
Yeah.
What happened here? No one asked questions. It's fine. She turned into a dragon, clearly.
Yeah, it reveals herself.
His face is the most recognizable face in all of faces. I'm the type of person when someone changes their hair, I can't recognize them. You change your hair color, I'm not going to recognize who you are. But these people are like, yeah, no, that's him. But Mim gets arrested by Sun Country?
Yeah, Guinevere's actual parents show up and they're like, no, you have to answer to us, ma'am.
Which I get it. She kidnapped your daughter, but she just committed treason? She impersonated the king for 2 months and almost destroyed the entirety of London?
Yeah.
Because it feels like Arthur's kingdom's bigger than Sun Country, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. And so it's like the FBI has tracked you down and you're just gonna go to state prison?
That's a good way to think of it.
Also, she's one of the most powerful wizards that's ever what are you? It's Medlit. It's fine.
It's Medlit, exactly.
She gets arrested by Sun Country. Gwen is gonna go live with her mom in a little bit. Oh, by the way, while she's being dragged off, she's begging Gwen. And then Gwen kind of rejects her. And then Viv just turns around. She's like, you were too much trouble anyway. This, that, and the other thing. I was like, oh, that's accurate.
Yeah.
The thing emotionally immature adults will do to save their pride. The reaches, the back-breaking reaches. Ugh.
Yep. He sets up a democracy so they can elect their next ruler, which they don't conflict of it. It's like democracy in name is a great idea, but the intricacy.
But just giving it to people who don't know anything?
Yeah, exactly. There has to be education. There has to be all this kind of stuff. Like talking about the inherent responsibility of voting. They literally even mention that. It's just like, no, you have to care about your king and country enough. And it's just, y'all, there are going to be total absolute farts in there too. That's how this works. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that public education was invented was because they believed that you needed to have an educated populace so that people could make educated votes to steer their country. You don't have an educated populace back in the Middle Ages.
They can't even read.
Yeah.
It comes off as a 8th grader running for student president.
Yes.
More than it comes across as a national election.
And we gave crash course lessons so that people would know who to vote for and know how to write the person.
How to spell the names of the person they're voting for, yeah.
Y'all, come on.
And Merlin has set up these magical boxes that automatically tally back in London, so everyone can have one. Well, then why did you set up a thing where you could say the word and they didn't have to spell?
Yeah, okay, girl.
How are you going to read that? Their handwriting would be terrible. Have you seen a kindergartner learning how to write? Terrible. Anyway, these are all thoughts that have no play on the book.
None at all. None.
It's fine. They elect Arthur. Arthur's gobsmacked. Oh my gosh. Who would ever think?
No surprise there. I couldn't see that coming from a mile away.
He votes for Merlin. He's like, how did Merlin get unelected? Because they don't know he exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course they vote for the most famous person.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, he's shocked. Oh my gosh.
Little naive boy.
The ending sentence is actually pretty good. I want to say it's happened in one of the other, my brain tells me it happened in like Mulan or like one of the other books where the title was in the last sentence. But she ends it with, his destiny was set in stone.
Set in stone. Yeah, I thought that was probably the best use of the title. We'll give you credit if it's in the last sentence, but it's one single word, reflection. Not that hard to work in there. So, but I thought that was the best use of the title in any of the books that we've had so far.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, that was cute. General thoughts. It's really obvious where I could go darker, but she doesn't, and I'm not mad about it.
No, honestly.
A good story is a good story. I give this 5 stars. I liked it a lot. I'm very glad that I own it. I think it's a fun time. It's a really short read. It's very light.
It was so easy to read, yes.
Oh yeah, I would give this to my kid, like in elementary school.
Yeah.
It's a good story. You don't need it to be dark. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to, whatever the heck Liz sometimes tries to do with it, which we give Liz a hard time because she's a founding person, but she has some really good books in there. And so, I don't know, I was just fine with it in that it didn't need to be dark for me. It didn't need to whatever. And I'm really curious if the fact it didn't come out in the US, she was able to make it more mid-lit.
Yeah.
Or that was just the vein she always had, and they knew that going in, or the editors were also like me, where it's like, it's a good story. I don't care as long as it's a good story. But I thought it was fun. I never had any idea where it was. I mean, I had some ideas because, tropes, but majority of the story, I didn't know where it was going next. I never pinned that they were going to have to go to Bermuda. I didn't think about the fact that Mim would take over the throne almost immediately, or that, like I said, I thought the real sword would come back instead of the other thing. And so there were plenty of times where it's like, I didn't know where it was going, which was really entertaining.
That's true. And for such a simple book, to be able to have that many questions and that kind of obfuscation is pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah, so I feel like it would be a good addition to any kid's library.
I know. I think, and that's where I have to pull back. For something that I would want to read, no, like I really struggled to keep going with it, especially with all of the fourth wall breaking and everything. But for what I think is what it is supposed to be, and I think that's where we come down to. If this is what the Twisted Tales is supposed to be, not dark, not super scary, and all that kind of stuff, like this was done really well. If this is what it's supposed to be like, and so I would say like this is one of the best ones we've had so far, vis-a-vis a story and the characters and pacing of it all. It was so easy to just keep going. Next page. I mean, yeah, it's what, like 350 pages, I think. Yeah, right about there.
But it still felt really short.
Yeah, it did. An adult could easily consume this in a day or two, right? Versus a kid could take about a week.
Or some adults, it might take a week. Or you're a slow reader.
Yeah, or if you're a slow reader. I mean, in complexity, right? There's not big words. The sentence structure is really easy. I don't know about yours. I think we have the same copy. The pages and the word print is massive.
Which most of them are for the series, honestly.
Fair. Okay. This is my first physical copy, so.
It's not a Scholastic book, so you wouldn't see it, but it has perfect space to be in a Scholastic fair. Absolutely. For the genre, I think it's great. I think it's really good. It stands with like other really good mid-lit. And so why the sudden UK schism?
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's not a question for the author, because I have no doubts the author has no clue why they have made this decision.
And it wasn't in her control either, yeah.
I totally understand why this one, maybe, because it's so integral to like legend and lore and this, that, and the other thing, but Americans like Incredibles.
Yeah, like you said, this one makes sense because of the content. The rest of the ones that are only UK releases don't make sense. Like The Incredibles is a very American, took place in America, all that kind of stuff. Beyond this one, the rest of it doesn't make any sense.
Americans love The Lion King.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. But my one question for the author, she's obviously a big King Arthur fan. I would want to know what her favorite King Arthur story would be. There's some really good ones, even for a hater like me who thinks it's oversaturated. But yeah, so I'd be curious which story she was like, I really, really like these. If there's certain adaptations, if there's certain ones are different than others, just what got her into this? What got her into Camelot?
Yeah, I think that's close to my question too. Like, I like the idea of, I would wonder which adaptation is her favorite, because Merlin, she specifically had Merlin reference, oh, you have like several motion pictures about you and several TV shows, and Arthur's like, what the heck are all these? And he's explaining, he's like, too bad we don't have time to sit around and binge them. And all I was thinking about, right, is when I got you to start watching Merlin, the BBC version of Merlin, and all of that. And so that was my question when she said that. It's like, oh, I wonder what her favorite adaptation of this story is, because there are just so many, you know, and I have a preference to the BBC adaptation called Merlin. What was The Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? Like, that was a modern time movie with, what was that, Nicolas Cage and I forget the kid's name, but classic Merlin and Arthur and that. So that would be my question. Or can you please go back and rewrite some of these other stories? I want to see them from yours. Or how would you have included Lancelot in this? Honestly, I would have loved that question, is can I get a follow-up with Lancelot and how you handle that?
Ugh, it's not real. It didn't happen. Rating. Kids cartoon out of 10? You just need to take some stuff out of your head and like put it to the side to enjoy it, but you can still enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I still like Yu-Gi-Oh! WB mornings, watched the crap out of so much stuff. My favorite Chowder, I still love SpongeBob. You can have a really good story and it be produced for kids and it'd be totally fine.
Bluey is our modern day reference to that, right? So yeah, would say AR top 100 list. When you had to read your AR books to get your Pizza Hut pizza party,
oh yeah.
100%. You could read this for your AR, 50 book summer project or whatever to get your Pizza Hut pizza party.
Oh yeah. Read again. Yeah. I liked it. It was chill. It was fun. It wasn't a huge time commitment.
Yeah, honestly, I'd recommend it to people.
Heck yeah. I'd give it to my kid. It's a good book. As an adult, it feels about on par with the movie, but as a kid, I think I would have liked the book better than the movie.
I agree. Because, the girl having a female character, Gwyneth.
The girl, but also you're not dealing with muted colors and drawn out, look at what we can animate scenes. Because there's some good things in the movie, like the battle with Nim, pulling the sword out, but there's a lot of in-between moments. But have you read this book? Do all twisted tales really need to be twisted? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring Set in Stone with us.
Join us next time when we'll be covering I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle.
I'm Sam Ryder.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is this Lunar Skull production. Check us out on Facebook, because I had to get one of those. Instagram or TikTok to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.